be one of your primary obstacles in the Pac-12.
Oh, there's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. They're one of the better teams in the country, and that's why they got the ranking of one publication I think has them at 7, the other 8. So well deserved. They're playing well. They've beaten some good teams. I think they beat Michigan late. Number 2 team in the country. So yeah, it should be a good test for us.
Sort of feels like NASCAR having the Daytona 500 as the first race. It's like for your first conference opponent to be kind of the other primetime team in the league right now. What's it like to start out that way?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but it's the same for them too, So it's not like one team gets an advantage there, but within the first 3 weeks, you're going to have what I consider probably the top 3 teams in the conference playing each other within the first 3 weeks. So everyone will know a lot, and someone could have a good lead, or it could be just as confusing after 3 weeks as it is right now.
Heather Tarr, a great track record up there in Washington.
Yeah.
What's it like to match up against her?
Well, she's a competitor, She played for the Washington Huskies, and since she's been up there, she's changed that program. Won a national championship, so she's been doing some great things. And of course, she attracted away one of our assistants and volunteers, and Mike Roberts. He's helping him out as well. So, she's a competitor and she knows how to play the game.
If Hawkins goes game 1, who do you have in game 3?
Well, game 2, it could be Jerry Ann or it could be Megan Kleiss, and I'm not quite sure right now. It depends on what happens game one. If I have to bring somebody in for an extended period of time in game 1, that could change a lot of things. So right now, nothing's set in stone there as far as 2 or 3.
You said before the season, you were Coral. You wanted to see her be able to move up in the order, and you were kind of interested to see how she'd handle, a higher spot in the order. Safe to say she's eased any doubts about how she'd handle that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if there's someone that's hot right now, it's Coral Costa along with Nikki Udria, and she is it's not bothering her at all. She's having quality at bats, hitting the ball well. I'm excited to see how she finishes the rest of the season, and if she can continue to do that and we get Jenna Lilly hot, it could be a tough lineup to get through.
Hawkins' walks really came down in that last start. You've talked about her control in the beginning of this season. How did she look going into Washington?
She did struggled again just a little bit in the first innings, and then just settled down, and her stuff was pretty unhittable after that point. So right now we just got to get her to start better. Come out that way and attack people, and I don't know. It's just sometimes you're just not quite sure what she's going to do out there. But I do like the direction she's going, though. I think she's getting a little more mentally tough. She's using her pitches more in certain situations. So again, we got to continue to push that because not only are we looking at the Pac-12, but looking how we obviously end the season. We want to be able to beat those top teams at the end.
Would you like to not work her as much as maybe she's gone the last couple of years, looking at the end of the season to have her fresher?
That's a good question, but I think she likes to be out there. She likes to throw, and she, obviously, trying to find that magic formula where there's a magic number of innings she has to throw. But she didn't throw as much last year as she did the year before. I think the year before she threw a lot more, and she looked okay in the postseason, but I think it came down a lot to confidence, and we got off to kind of that rough start in the World Series, and sometimes that can do some things. But right now, she looks pretty fit. I think she might have lost a little bit too much weight at some point in the season. In the preseason, she was doing a lot of CrossFit and things like that. And as we all know, some pitchers need to carry a little bit of weight to be able to keep their velocity up. And I think she's starting to get stronger as we go along here, along with the conditioning programs.
How about the other two? What have you seen so far out of them?
Well, Jerry Ann's best when she's able to use her off speeds. And to be able to use your off speeds, you have to be able to get ahead. And that was always her problem last year, was she wasn't getting ahead to be able to use her off speeds. So right now, she's challenging people early on and be able to use her different speeds. She has 2 or 3 different speeds out there. So that could be a real big factor for us going forward as far as whether she's in middle relief or starter. I'm not quite sure where we're going to use her yet. Megan Kleiss has been very impressive. She's had 1 or 2 rough outings, I suppose, and one against Missouri, and that was mostly location-based. We worked really hard on coming out and making sure we kept her drop ball at the knees, but her off-speed right now is really the killer pitch for her, and she can control that. She could be a big part of whether we defend or whether we don't win the title.
How you use those 3, is it going to depend more on what Hawkins is doing or how good the others do against Pac-12 level competition? You're still deciding.
Well, no, Hawkins is our number 1 at this point, and so she's going to get the majority of the starts, majority of the innings, and she's proven it over time that she deserves that spot. But I think that with Jerry Ann and with Megan Kleiss pitching really well, I may not have as long a leash. It means I may make decisions to bring her in earlier, bring one of those two in earlier. But still, right now, this team's going to go probably as far as what Sheridan Hawkins does.
When you look at Aguilar and Gano in the middle of that lineup for the Huskies, how does that stack up against the middle of the order for the other Pac-12 schools?
Well, right now Aguilar's very hot. I mean, she's got over 10 home runs and hitting the ball pretty well. And then Gano, of course, has got some pretty awesome power right there. So they got her protected, with Gano. So that's what we got to make sure. Those two, we got to be real careful. Obviously, the people ahead of him, kids like Van Zee and Melhart, we've got to keep them off base. And so, if those other two come up, they're just got nobody really to drive in. That's going to be the key for us. And then dominating the bottom half of the order for us. We got to keep them off base, limit those kind of opportunities for them. So that's what we've got to do.
Do you see this as a high-scoring series, or are you going in saying we need to score a lot of runs?
Well, you just don't know. You don't really know. What's the umpire zone going to be like? That could dictate a few things. Whether we can get a little bigger zone, it might help both pitching, both staffs, and you could see a lower scoring series. Is the wind blowing out, or is it blowing in? Up there, the weather can be a factor, just like it is here. So we'll have to see what happens, but I think that possibly the first day it could be a lower scoring, and then the second day it could be a little higher, and third day you just don't know.
Oregon State seems to have improved quite a bit. How deep do you think the Pac-12 is this year?
Well, the Pac-12's had a few more losses than I thought they would have at this point of the year, especially Arizona. I thought they would be a little better as far as a win-loss record than what they've shown right now, and the same with UCLA. But UCLA's had some pitching issues. Their number one pitcher was hurt, and they didn't have their lefty available. But they're starting to turn the corner as well. So I think there's going to be lots going to be kind of told the first 3 weeks of what happens here. When everybody plays each other. But I tell you what, it could be a situation where Utah could come up and beat somebody. Oregon State is showing they can beat some really good teams. Cal has a lot of hitting ability on that team if they can pitch. They'll get some upsets as well. So it could be a really dogfight type of year for the Pac-12, and maybe a team wins it with 5 or 6 losses.
Are you concerned at all that you have a short week after this series going into Stanford?
Well, somewhat, but I think the energy is going to be up because of the new stadium, and everyone's fired up to get out there. And the good thing is, we're in the off week, so spring break, so that gives them a little opportunity to maybe rest up and not have to hit the books and those types of things. So, and also, just traveling back by bus is not quite as draining as the late night flights and things like that, so they can sleep on the bus. So. We're not trying to make a big deal of it. It's going to be the same for Stanford. Well, actually, it won't be because they got the week off, right? Because their dead week is, this weekend. They don't play this weekend, so they have that advantage. But as far as we're concerned, it's a matter of us taking care of business and coming out and being professional.
You're in the thick of the season, so your focus is on each weekend, each game. But is that anticipation rising as the home opener gets closer?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of fanfare about it. We had the big flush going on tomorrow afternoon where we've tested the water system and all the flows, and I haven't seen the actual stadium in about a month, and I think that's by design because I want to be wowed by it, and but from what I hear, it looks pretty good, and I'm excited to get over there and take a look at it. We're excited to be able to get it a place to call our own and have a practice facility that we can utilize, and the film room. There's so many things that we can do now. We have our own facility.
You've been on the road for the better part of over a month even. Are you guys pretty just travel weary at this point? Or is that draining?
It can get that way. Especially when get those late flights back and you're having to drive back from Portland and stuff, and get a little weary. But I think that just makes it all better to get home. Once you get home, you get to sleep in your own bed. And from this point in the season, we only have, I think, one more flight left. I think it is. No, 2 flights. We go to Arizona State and we go to Cal. So the rest of the season, the rest are bus drives. 2 bus drives to Washington and to Oregon State. So, hey, most of it's behind us. And so it's always good looking forward and saying, hey, most of our games are going to be at home, or at least we're going to be on the road, not as much flying. Great.
Thanks, Coach.